guys, today I'm doing a review of Save Me Cobain by Jenny Manzer. This is a YA contemporary novel that was one of the ones that I was most excited about that just came out in March this year. It's a story about a teenage girl who her mum disappeared when she was a kid, and for some reason she decides that her dad might be Kurt Cobain, and then one day when she sees a guy that looks like Kurt Cobain, she follows him. I am going to start by saying all of the non-spoilery things, and then there will be just a couple of spoilery things that I want to say at the end, but I'll let you know before I get to those. Being a big Nirvana fan and a big fan of Kurt Cobain, I really wanted to enjoy this one. I was really intrigued about where the story would go and stuff, but unfortunately I was disappointed. Firstly, I want to say that the blurb was not an accurate representation of what happens in this book. I just want to read the last part of the blurb to you. It says, "When she is stranded there by a winter storm, fear and darkness collide, and the only one who can save Nico might just be herself." That whole fear and darkness collide thing, completely inaccurate. I would not say that this is a dark book at all. There's nothing really scary that happens in it. There's nothing like dark that starts happening, so I have no idea what they're on about. I think they were just trying to get you hooked in to wanting to read it, but that doesn't even really come about in this book, so I'm confused about why that was in the blurb. But yeah, it definitely reads more like middle grade fiction rather than YA. You can see it as a shorter book, and it just didn't feel like it was from the perspective of someone in their late teens. I just think that the author is kind of out of touch with youth. It came across like she was trying too hard to relate to teenagers, especially given that she was trying to write from the perspective of like an edgy teenager. I don't think she really captured that very well at all. Nico, the main character in this book, felt really underdeveloped. Her whole kind of personality is based around her mother leaving her as a child, and there's not a focus on anything else about her other than her taste in music, and we don't really learn a lot about her as a person, like what motivates her, what she's interested in, aside from the fact that her mother disappeared. Like, that's the sole focus of her being, and it just seems really, like, I know that would be, obviously that would be very important to you and it would make up a large part of who you became, but there wasn't anything else to her as a character, and it didn't feel real. And also throughout this book there wasn't enough character development for me. I don't feel like Nico really learnt anything or like came out of this with anything, and I didn't feel like I learnt more about her either through the course of the story. Everything I knew about Nico I'd already learnt just by reading the blurb, and then reading this book I didn't learn anything else. As you can guess by the title and by the the fact that it's about a girl who thinks her father is Kurt Cobain, the references to Nirvana and Kurt Cobain were heavy. There were a lot of them, and they were kind of irritating. I was expecting there to be subtle references to Nirvana and to Kurt Cobain, but they were really like in your face, just facts like thrown into the book. At one point there was actually 2.5 pages worth of Nirvana facts just like added in. 2.5 whole pages, which just seems weird in the context of a book. They weren't really relevant or helpful to the story. As someone who is a fan of Nirvana and of Kurt Cobain, I knew all of the facts already, so it was kind of like, okay, yeah, and what? And then I feel like for someone, if you were reading this not being a big fan of Nirvana or Kurt Cobain, you would just find it quite boring, because there are a lot of facts about that in here, and it's just kind of weird. That's kind of all of the non-spoilery things I have to say about this book. To be honest, I totally don't recommend it. I gave it 1 star on Goodreads. There was just nothing that I liked about it. It just wasn't what I was expecting. It wasn't dark and twisted and stuff. It was just kind of random and felt kind of pointless. There were places it could have gone, but it didn't, so I don't know. Moving on to the spoilery part, I basically just ended up with a whole lot of questions that I want to ask. So firstly, why the heck does Nico not believe that her actual dad is her actual dad? So she lives with her dad, and there's nothing to suggest that he isn't her father. So it just seemed weird to me that she would cast that off, and like, she's only left with one parent. Like, her mother disappeared, so her dad is the only person she's got, and she's just willing to be like, not my real dad. It was really weird. The second question I have is, why are all the adults in this book genuinely concerned that listening to Nirvana is going to make Nico kill herself? It was brought up by like 2 or 3 different adults in this book, and I was just like, really? I don't know why that was a thing. It just made the adults seem really nuts, and I think maybe the author's intention was to, pass Nico off as more of a rebel, because she's like disobeying what her parents, well, what her dad wants her to do, but It was just weird. And kind of the obvious question, why the heck does Nico think that random man that she sees on the ferry is Kurt Cobain? And why the heck does she think he's Kurt Cobain to the point where she accidentally calls him Kurt? The whole time, through that whole period where she's with him and trying to, you know, get him to admit that he is Kurt Cobain, she just comes across as like batshit crazy. Like actual crazy, but it's not dealt with in a way like, oh, she's mentally ill and that's the point of the story. It's just like she's actual crazy and it doesn't really get dealt with. Yeah, I didn't really understand that whole thing at all. So basically the final question I'm left with is, what the heck was even the point of this book? I don't know. Thanks for watching this review, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have read this or you intend to read it still, let me know. I'd like to hear the thoughts of anyone else who has read it, because I was really confused by this whole thing. So anyhow, thanks for watching this review, guys, and I will see you with my next one. Bye.